What's up, guys? This is Adi again from Gate 7 International, and I'm joining you little after the live show that we did earlier today for the scouting report on the surprise signing of the day, Roman Yaremchuk, the Ukrainian striker that was playing for Valencia this past season. Excited to talk about this. There's really a unique perspective and a lot to consider with this signing. But before we do, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you are joining for the first time, consider following us and checking out all of our content, and consider supporting us on Patreon. Patreon members at the enhanced content tier not only get access to our WhatsApp group, which you can access for $1 a month, but enhanced content tier members can get early access to the deep dives, which are available before the player actually signs, and then everybody can watch the deep dives once the players are officially announced. So let's move on to the analysis. Let's talk about Roman Yaremchuk, the Ukrainian striker that we just signed, again, quite literally out of nowhere. 28 years old, right-footed striker, and he is coming in at 6 foot 3 inches. So he's a pretty tall guy, 191 centimeters for the metric folks. And he's pretty stocky as well, 83 kilograms, 182 pounds. I mean, he is a big physical presence, one that will be noticed and one that is definitely going to be very hard to deal with. So our new Ukrainian striker has been in talks with the club for about a month now, according to Greek media. And the move came as an absolute shock to everyone, literally out of nowhere. The announcement came earlier today. Today is Sunday, July 28th at the time of recording. Technically, it's July 29th because I'm recording this past midnight. And the player was initially linked with Brentford, but he chose Olympiacos because he was more interested in this project. Moreover, the player was greatly wanted by our coach, Jose Luis Mendilibar, and Darko Kovacevic. There's a bit of drama with the fans' reactions, as we saw in our live show that was earlier today. And social media, there was people already calling him a coat, washed player, very upset with the signing. So in this report, I'm going to discuss all of the context with this player. Starting with his profile, he is a bull, and I'm talking about the bull with the horns. I mean, big stature, strong, and surprisingly quick, actually, for his size. His ball control is very close. He takes pretty small touches to keep things close to him. And then because he is keeping the ball close, he can cut and change direction very quickly. And this catches players by surprise, especially given the size that he has. You don't expect him to move that fast. He doesn't have a lot of flair per se, but he can finesse the ball around defenders pretty comfortably. And by this, I'm referring to like maybe small flicks. A defender tries to stick his foot and he flicks the ball over his foot, cheeky nutmeg, that kind of thing. So all in all, he's pretty solid in terms of technical ability when the ball's at his feet. Now, this scouting report is a bit different than the other deep dives. This player has so much more in terms of abstract issues to point out, and that's going to impact the evaluation. So while I can point out the patterns to you guys that I see in the tape, the player of the last 2 years is different than the player that all of Europe was hyped about. I'll be doing my best to formulate an educated opinion on whether or not the signing will be a good fit for the system, but we'll get into it and you'll understand why things are a little bit more difficult than perhaps some other deep dives. So we're going to get started as we always do with some goal creation stats. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Yarmchuk is a bull. The guy has a massive physical presence, dominant in the air. Most of the goals that he does score are pretty much just one touch shots. I mean, any goal where he took more than one touch on the ball came from balls that were played in the air, like crosses or something that literally came directly from behind him over the defender, where he would be caught in stride, quickly take a touch, usually very nice touches. If you saw the goal that he had in Euro 2024, similar type of thing. I mean, gorgeous touch and quickly flicking it into the back of the net. Scored a lot of crosses, low balls played across the penalty area. I'm not just referring to last year, I'm talking about his whole career now. He has great power on his shots as well, and he can take some really strong shots that are at the top of the penalty area. and even slightly beyond with pretty good accuracy. In fact, while his data at this past season with Valencia is pretty horrible, as you can see here, the thing that remained consistent was his shot accuracy. It didn't matter the context. He had a pretty solid ability to keep things on target and and force a save from a keeper. Unfortunately, outside of the above context, there were really no other types of shot opportunities materialized that into goals. I mean, I did get a couple of headers, but I mean, the context that I told you above was literally all the context that he scored goals for. At Valencia, he really looked lost at times. Uh, Caught surprised in intervals of play, you know, visually having to get back with the team because he didn't really understand where a transition was going. In the end, regardless of whether it was for club or country, he just was a bull in general, trying to get onto the scoring end of a ball played in. It's just a shame that in Valencia he kind of looked like he was a little bit out of sorts, out of place. Now, assist creation came from two types of situations: either a cross that he would make into the penalty area, especially if he drifted out wide. Um, and I mean, even the majority of his shot assists that he didn't get assists from were from like that similar context. But it was again either the crosses into the penalty area, or if he had gotten the ball like right inside the penalty area, he would just kind of play a quick pass to somebody that was open. Those were the two exact contexts for all of his assists and the vast majority of his shot assists. And um, the fact of the matter is, he's not a guy that helps provide goal contributions, despite the fact that he actually links up pretty well with his teammates. But more often than not, he's the designated target man when you are trying to score. It's not uncommon for him to have a few assists in the year. This past season, he had 0 assists, but don't expect him to be a major guy in terms of the provision of goal scoring opportunities for teammates. He's a target man, and that's really where his value is going to lie. In terms of passing and build up, in possession, Yaremchuk is extremely low volume of touches and passes. I mean, you can even see here compared to other forwards, which in general don't have big volume. I mean, his is very low. We're talking about literally like just over a dozen passes per 90 minutes. And when he plays for his country, as we saw in Euro 2024, he's a little bit more comfortable getting involved, asks for the ball more, and generally he keeps his position at the top of the attacking line. He'll drop deeper to receive the ball for 1-2 touch passes, moves, maybe help distribute the ball, especially wide. But that's he's really going to stay at the top of the line. Now, prior to the past 2 seasons, you would see him get much more involved in build up, dropping deeper, feed the ball wide, keeping things moving. But he is still primarily a point man and a target man that can score goals with some decent hold up play. He does also have some pretty decent vision downfield, and on occasion, if he drops deep to receive the ball, can play a lovely long ball to. Usually, it's his wingers that are running downfield. So um, the past season I saw, uh, I should bring this up. Final point in terms of the build up thing. I did see from him runs kind of like behind the defender before he went to Club Bruges, but in the last couple seasons I didn't really see those inside runs. So it is something that's in his toolkit, but for whatever reason, focus, direction, I'm not quite sure. But we did not really see a lot of those inside runs behind the defenders, like those Masuras types of runs. And these types of runs are pivotal in the Mendilibar system for forwards. So I'm hoping that Mendilibar is going to be able to find a way to bring this back. Now, as far as pass accuracy goes, his pass accuracy generally is average to above average, but this past season, as you can see here, it was well below average. Made more than a few mistakes in possession, even with his low number of touches. I mean, some of the losses of passing the ball came because he was holding the ball maybe a little bit too long. And others were misplaced balls at shorter distances because it seemed like there was a disconnect between where he thought his teammate was going to be and where his teammate actually was. Uh, he would try to dish it out shortly, and the ball would be lost because he would send it kind of like the wrong direction. So Yaremchuk also doesn't really dribble the ball that much. He just kind of ends up passing it things pretty quickly. Not that he can't take anybody on the dribble, but he just kind of prefers to get things moving. So look constantly 1-2 touch. Maybe if he has to go past somebody to give himself space, he will. But it's usually like gets the ball 1 touch, 2 touch, and then he's distributing again. So I'm inclined to believe overall that his poor pass accuracy this past season had more to do with his lack of understanding with his teammates more so than anything else. I don't think it's necessarily because we don't see this replicated in other seasons. We see much better pass accuracy. So I'm inclined to believe that it was an issue with the team, not so much a core issue with the players' performance and characteristics. Now looking at his defensive traits, when it comes to forwards and offensive players, guys, we always say the same thing. We are not looking for dedicated ball winners in our forwards. The things that we care about, whether or not they track back and press. Um, Yaremchuk seems to track back quite well, actually, and especially given the number of shots he blocked on the defensive end, you can see in that middle third of the data there he really helps the back line and on the defensive side of things. Um, at Valencia, he also seemed to put effort into getting forward and pressing the back line. He even had a number of shot opportunities and scored a couple goals off of the type of pressure that he would put on the defensive line. He did this at Club Brugge well. So he has these types of opportunities in every season for other clubs. So this lends me to believe that he'll be more than functional in the press for us. Um, due to his size, his speed, and his incredible vertical, he's also a force in the air. This goes for both the offense and the defensive side of things. I brought this up earlier. But on defense, when he comes back to assist in set pieces, he can get a number of clearances for the team. Mendilibar, we know, is going to require his players to come back. So this is a pretty positive sign for us because as we've talked about, our team is built around the press first because the press is the core strategy of this team. The press is the core strategy, the core tactic that we use both for the offensive side of things and the defensive side of things. We are seeing this team develop its buildup as well, but everything works off of how we press and counter press our opponents. So him being able to do all this is probably tantamount in term versus other things that we would other things that we would be looking at with regards to the player. Now, up next, we have we're going to be doing our comparison like we always do. So we have our radar plot here, and we're going to be doing the comparison to Navaro. So we're going to be comparing Yaremchuk's capabilities and his data from last season to Fran Navarro. Now, the reason I chose Navarro is because we know that El Kabi is still going to be the starter with this signing. And since he's going to be a second striker, since Yaremchuk's going to be a second striker or a backup, it pays for us to know what he brings and how he compares to our other backups. And is he at the very least better than what they brought us? So when we look at the comparison here between Frandivar and him, I mean the differences are painfully obvious. And the funny thing is, even in the worst period in Yaremchuk's career, we see him more valuable in possession than Frandivar. Navarro's shooting statistics are actually not bad. He had the highest accuracy in the Greek league among forwards and his shot accuracy was 63 over 63%. Even his goal conversion was elite. A quarter, 25% of his shots he converted into goals this season. So, I mean, this is by the numbers, of course, because the problem with Navaro, as you all probably remember, was that if he's not scoring goals for you, he literally offers you nothing. He's useless. Yaremchuk at least has value in the press. He can move the ball around. He's pretty technical, so he's actually competent in the distribution. But his lack of service provided for his teammates lends you, Navaro's I'm talking about, lends you to think that um, uh, that Yaremchuk is like a Ukrainian version of Navaro, just in terms of the accomplishments and what he offers to the team. So, if with Yaremchuk coming out of the worst period of his career, he still offers very close to what Navaro did to us, albeit with some less end product and shot accuracy. So take that into consideration, that these plots are pretty close together, and this is the worst period of the career of Yaremchuk versus Navaro's is probably at the peak of his career, which is, whether it's sad or scary to say, it is what it is. So as we bring the analysis here to a close, I have to remind you about what I brought up in the beginning of the scouting report. The analysis around the player is filled with context, much of which is abstract, and I haven't really touched on a lot of it yet. I can go through data with you guys until I'm blue in the face regarding this player, because quite frankly, I mean, the data is awful. It was. You guys saw it. It's awful. Fran Navaro was terrible, and his radar plot was worse in many cases to Fran Navaro. The data sucks. I'm not sugarcoating this. But if you're listening to me now and you heard me earlier on the live show, maybe you're a bit confused. Because on the live show, I sounded positive about the player, but now I'm talking to you guys quite negative. In these reports, I give you everything, data, what I see in the tape, all to help evaluate the fit of the player with the team. And while I could belabor on how bad this looks, there is something that we need to discuss here. And this plays in part to why on the live show I actually had some positivity. This player's home country was invaded and is still at war. This player lost 6 to 10 kilograms after the war started going into the next season. That's 12 to 23 pounds he lost. I mean, and these are football players at the prime of their lives. I mean, they're in very good shape. And these days where we have sports nutritionists that are monitoring their body fat, making sure that they're in the best physical condition as possible. So when a player is losing 6 to 10 kilograms, almost 24 pounds, this is not good. It is not good at all. Then you start losing muscle. You start losing strength. Not good. And if he's losing that from stress, you can bet your butt that he is losing focus. So he goes through this ordeal, the stress, he loses weight. He then gets sold by his club, by Benfica. He goes to Belgium. And then after a year in Belgium, they loan him to Spain. So I want you to think about this. This man's home, his life, his family is under attack. And he has not had a stable place to stay and focus. He gets moved to a different country every year. He was in Portugal, he was in Belgium, then he's in Spain. So let's maybe look at this from the human side of things. This guy needs a fresh start, a fresh start, not a start where he's one place, he's going to get moved to another place and another. He has talent. Otherwise, teams wouldn't have spent over 30 million euros within 2 seasons on him. He just needs to find his footing again. Now, looking at this at face value, this signing is riddled with risk. I'm not going to lie to you. We paid for Olympiacos a hefty fee, and he will be a backup to El Kabi, backup, second striker, what have you. But our coach, Jose Luis Mendilibar and Darko Kovacevic, wanted him. If Mendilibar wants him, he's earned that trust from me to pick players and profiles that he thinks will be successful. Mendilibar has gotten the most out of players that were otherwise useless to us. Jovetic is the prime example. Had no idea what this guy could do for us when Martinez was here. Mendilibar came and we unlocked something that we didn't know we had. So if he thinks that this is a guy that will do well for Olympiacos and that can offer something, I trust him. If you're asking me at face value what my verdict is, it's not thumbs down, but it's like not thumbs up either. It's like right here. There's a lot of risk. That's why I have that outlook. We are banking on our coach and the coach's team to not only replicate the context for success that I've already spoken about, but to find a way to get this player to focus on the game, to bring back his game, a player whose country, his life, it's at war still. It's all of this is threatened. It's a ton of risk, tons of risk with that. But I have full faith in Jose Luis Mendilibar, and I personally think he can turn this guy's career around. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that the outlook is a very risky player per dollar spent. This guy could fail. Mendilibar could get it wrong, and we end up complaining about wasted money. People will call him a palto. There's a very, very high likelihood that that's the case. Or Mendilibar gets it right, and then we have a near 20 million euro player on our hands in the prime of his career. So while the verdict is a meh, we'll say, my full support and faith goes to Mendilibar, and I believe that he will turn this player's career around. I really do. So I know that's kind of like a little bit of a paradox there because I'm telling you guys that it's an S signing at face value, but I have faith in the coach. But that's really how it is. If we're looking at everything with straight, no rose tinted glasses, so to speak, that's what it is. It's a risky signing. But we're allowed to have faith in our coach. We're allowed to believe in him because of what he's done for us in the past. And that's the case with this. That's exactly how I see it. And I know it's difficult in a scouting report like this because I'm trying to give you guys an educated outlook on what these players can offer the club and whether or not he'll succeed. But there's dice being rolled in so many ways here. We are literally rolling the dice and taking a gamble on aspects of this player's life that we think we can control, and his mentality, which has been impacted by things that for some of us we can't even contemplate or fathom what he's going through. So I hope I was able to provide you guys at least with some more information on the player, maybe things that you can hold on to, maybe things that you can hope for. And but most of all, I hope I gave you guys more of a reason to root for this player. Some of you are very upset. I get it. You don't think this is a great signing, but this is a player you root for because if he makes this turnaround, it will be magical. I'm not saying he'll make it because odds are he won't. But if he does do it, it's magical. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's definitely more scouting reports to come, more friendlies on the way. We're going to see a lot more for Olympiacos. The season is so close to starting. I'm so excited. I know a lot of you guys are. Before I close things up here, I'll just reiterate again. This is a player that we support. There's so much going on here. And it really is. There is a player here. There's a lot of talent here. What the gamble is on with Roman Yaremchuk is his mentality. Can we get this guy back to the headspace he was in before things started in Ukraine? So I hope you guys support him. I hope you give him a chance to try and prove himself. Let's be the judges of what happens down the line. I'm Adi. This is Gate 7 International by the fans for the fans. I hope you enjoyed the scouting report. There's definitely going to be a couple more of these coming. I can feel it. And I feel we will also have a really special season on us. So I'll see everyone next time on the next live and in the next Guy Report.